Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New View podcast. My name is Mac.
And my name is Megan,
Come along with us as we dive into the world of competitive Irish dancing and beyond.
sharing perspectives, developing community, and learning from each other.
We hope you enjoy.
So today we're excited to do something new. We're taking things solo today, and I'm here to interview the amazing Aiden Dwyer, who has such a great story in Irish dancing, both in the competitive world and in the performance world. And I can't wait for everyone to hear about his journey. So, Aiden, do you want to start by just telling us how you got involved in dancing and kind of where you are now with things?
Yeah, of course. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this. And then yeah, so I grew up in an Irish dancing family. My mom danced when she was a kid, my aunt danced, my cousins dance, everyone dances. So when I was just about six, I think it was a week away from turning six, my mom signed my sister and I up for a dance class for actually her old teacher. And really haven't looked back since. Slowly progressed through the levels. I always say like I was not good when I was younger. I was not someone who just, like went up there really fast. I was in prelim for about 5 years before I finally got out. And then slowly but surely, worked my way up, and it wasn't until I hit 18, I was almost about to stop actually, and I decided to do one more Oireachtas in college, and that's when it finally took off from there. And yeah,
Cool. And what do you think it was that, like at 18, things started to change after like a full lifetime of dancing? What was it that made you like have some kind of switch?
I really learned the value of practicing. So for anyone listening to this now, practice. Um, Growing up, it's not that I didn't practice per se, but I wasn't having good practice time. I was more dancing than I was practicing. And then I would spend 20 minutes, walking through my steps and trying to do this new cool move that I saw at the fest last weekend. Um, and it wasn't until I was 18, I was in college away from where I'd always danced growing up. I was 4 hours away from home, and the onus was on me to practice. I was the one who said I wanted to do that one more Oireachtas. I was the one who then had to put the work in. And I was very fortunate that there was studio space at the college that I could use. Slowly but surely, like as I aged up in college, and like I was in the Irish Dance Club, I got more and more control over the studio, which definitely helped. Um, but it wasn't until I had to practice on my own, I really learned the value of practicing. And from there, that's when everything took off.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with that we don't really talk about. Like everyone's like, "Oh, I practice, I do this, I do this." Like we all do something, but being super purposeful in your actual practicing is a valuable tool to learn, especially like when you're younger and kind of growing up in a dancing world. It's hard to know like, am I being productive? Is this effective and all of that? And I think it's kind of weird, or it feels weird to almost look back and say, okay, like, am I doing a good job? It's hard to assess, especially when you're younger, and say, okay, like, can I do this better? Can I be smarter? What was it for you, just kind of having control over it yourself, or saying, this is on me, like, I've got to change how I'm doing this? Like, how was that process for you?
I think kind of both. I think I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. I wish it clicked sooner. I wish it clicked when I was, 13 and not 18. Um, but it was the fact that, yeah, it was on, like, I was on my own. It was me and the mirror in the studio, and that was it. I didn't have my teachers there, like, telling me what I had to do. I had to realize what I had to do myself, and having that responsibility, I think.
Yeah, for sure. When it's all, on you, I think we're all super fortunate, or a lot of us are, to have teachers, who are at class all the time and dancing with our teachers multiple times a week. And it's not until you're without them where you're like, okay, wait, I actually have to like do this by myself.
Absolutely. And
So,
I think another thing is that because it was a shared studio at college, I only had a certain amount of time that I had to budget that. Like I couldn't have, however long I wanted up until that point at home when I was practicing, I could do this and then I could sit on the couch for 20 minutes and then I could do this and then I could go watch TV for 30 minutes. I had an hour in the studio and I had to make the most of it. And that was on me.
yeah, almost as if you're like thrown in the deep end all of a sudden and just told like,
Absolutely.
swim, like you just gotta figure it out. And sometimes, that doesn't always work, but sometimes it's just exactly what you need to like bring out the very best in you. So that's cool. So with that, did you notice then a big change in obviously like you probably enjoyed dancing more when you were practicing and like feeling more accountable for what you were doing. Um, as like results kind of increased in your confidence and like performance level, or was it just overnight or like kind of a long-term thing? I don't know. I just love to know more about that whole process.
Yeah, I think it wasn't overnight per se. Like, obviously, I had to do a lot of work to get where I was, but it did happen. Once it clicked, it happened really, really rapidly. I had, like I said, spent 5 years trying to get out of prelim. I had never recalled at the nationals before until that year going into college. I recalled for the first time, and then within 2 years, I was in the top three. So once it clicked and I learned the value of practicing, I did it more and more and more and more and more. And my results kept getting better. And that fueled me more to go back in the studio and work even harder so that for the next major, I'd be even better. So it definitely wasn't overnight, but once it clicked, I kind of went up there really fast.
Yeah, you figured out, like, okay, like this works for me. This is my plan. This is my routine. Like, I'm gonna stick with it. That's cool. What's kind of like your practice routine then? I'm sure it's changed like over the years and stuff, but because it's been so effective, like, what's your model? Do you like warm up, go right into stamina stuff, or do you drill? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Um, so I kind of take it day by day. Usually if I'm practicing, I like if I'm going to the studio, I would obviously warm up. Warm up is so important. Then maybe start slow, either do a step about, make sure that all the corrections I've been working on and my steps are being applied, or I would drill. I love to drill. And then, I'd start doing fulls, maybe a ladder here and there, some stamina. It really depends on what I need to be doing at the moment. If we're 3 months out from a major, I'm going to be spending more time drilling and like fixing and like critiquing myself on my own steps so that when it comes time to the major, like 2 weeks away, as we are now before the nationals, I'm just
Mhm.
running it over and over again like I would be on stage.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. And you kind of get the whole like perspective a teacher has, where they kind of plan things out months in advance or say, hey, like we're working on this right now. It's interesting that you like have taken on that
Yeah,
responsibility. With like that responsibility and taking on the role of like being your own critic, do you find yourself ever getting like, oh, like upset with yourself or feeling down on your dancing because it's on you and you're being your teacher?
absolutely. I am my own toughest critic. There's nothing that, my mom or my teachers or a dance captain or producer could say to me that I haven't already said worse to myself in my head. I am so tough on myself. Obviously, I'm trying to work on that, but I think a lot of it comes from for the last 4 years when I was at college, I was spending 7 days, sometimes 6, 7 days a week in the studio, and it was just me and myself in the mirror, and I had to be the one to see everything wrong with my dancing if I wanted to improve. And so
Mhm.
I think that kind of spiraled a little bit. I'm very hard on myself. Um, but at, on the other hand, I think it's good to be self-aware because, this is a subjective sport. It's not always going to go your way. So when I'm speaking to my teachers after a fesh or something, it's always really now the first thing I say is how I felt about my dancing. Because like I said, it's for so long it's been me and the mirror that now it's I know how I feel about my dancing better than I did.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I like that expression, that's just me in the mirror. That's like a good little motto to live by. But I also totally understand what you're saying as far as, it can have its moments where it's like so heavy and feels very hard and you're so hard on yourself. But
Yeah,
then on the other hand, it kind of develops that awareness of, oh, I know what my like very best looks and feels like, and that's on me to produce on stage at a competition or in class,
yeah,
like on my own in the studio. So gaining that realization, I'm sure, is really cool, even though
absolutely.
it does come with, being harder on yourself. Cool. So I happen to know you, so I know a bit about your dance journey, but can you explain for everyone a bit about how you've like kind of come into the performance world of Irish dance and how like simultaneously while this whole competitive like side is kind of erupting for you, so is the professional side. Like let's hear about that.
Yeah. So. You put that in a really nice way. They're kind of both on like two parallel tracks right now in my life, and I'm going between the two of them. So obviously I've been a competitive Irish dancer since I started, you know that story. And then I don't want to say stumbled, but basically stumbled my way into the professional Irish dance world in that I signed up for the Riverdance Summer School when I was 15 or 16 on a whim. My cousin, who I'm good friends with, had done it the year before, had a great time, recommended it. I was like, why not? Never like I wasn't in shape. I wasn't like a good performer, anything. So I went in there just looking for, to make some friends, have a fun week. Never in my wildest dreams was I like even considering shows. I No, like that wasn't even a thought. Like if you'd asked me going in, like, oh, do you want to go into Riverdance? No, the answer would have been no. Um, and in that week, I got bit by the bug. I came out of it. I loved it. My teachers always say it was a turning point in my dance career because I realized like what could happen if I worked hard. And I think that was a big motivator in starting to get that ball rolling. And then a couple years later in 2023, I was 18, 19. Um, and I went to the summer school in Dublin, which is actually where we met. Great memories from that week. And I had like that week, it was very different going into it. I was like, this is what I want, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get this. I had the absolute honor of getting to do some shows in the Gaiety as part of that week. And from there, again, it took off. So I got to do a couple things over the last year, met the most amazing people. I Because of meeting these people, I got to go on a tour earlier this year with a different company. I then have been starting to do some gigs in New York, where I'm based. And yeah, it's not something I ever saw myself doing when I was a young dancer. I was going to college. I just finished my degree. This all happened in the middle of my college like experience. It was not something I was planning on in the
Yeah.
slightest. But I am so fortunate that this is how it's happened. I'm so grateful that I have these opportunities, and I'm really excited that this is now what I want to do, and this is what I'm chasing after.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I like how you're just like, I kind of stumbled upon it. Some people are born with like that dream and other people like come across it and it's equally as important and impactful, like whether you've grown up with that dream or just like now discovered it. That's really cool that you like put your all into it and that you just love dancing enough to say, hey, I'm gonna like give this a try. And,
Exactly.
maybe I've just finished school and everything and I'm at that's a hard point in your life when a lot is happening and you're not quite sure what to do with yourself. Like it's a big growing up phase and to give yourself like the patience and time to say, okay, I'm gonna like pursue this thing that I just kind of stumbled upon and I don't know if it's exactly for me, but I'm gonna like give it my very best. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I really respect that. With that in mind, do you have like a lot of parallels that you draw on in the performance world that you've like learned from the competitive side and then reverse in terms of, hey, I like love this about performing, so I've tried to like work on it in my competitive dancing life.
Yeah. I think I'm in a very lucky position to do the both at the same time, and they do go hand in hand, at least in my experience. I'd say starting with taking things from the performing side into my competition dances, I always say that the two things I have are my feet and my face. I am not flexible. Like flicks are a struggle for me. I'm working on them, but I can turn my feet out really well and I can use my face really well when I'm on stage. And I've had the privilege to, be trained into some of these shows and work and perform every night when on tour. And as part of that, there's numbers where you have to be happy. There's numbers where you're serious. There's numbers where you're very full of pride. There's numbers where you're interacting with the audience. And I have the ability to do that all in my face from the shows. Why, like I've always said, why would I not do that when I'm on stage, even if it's competition, So I like to use my face a little bit when I'm dancing, obviously, um, smiling. But there's little parts in my dances where like if I know I can do this really well, then I'm gonna use it on my face and be like, yeah, I can do this really well. Watch me. It's very different from, when I was growing up, prelim, even open until I started doing the show things where I would just smile and, breathe through that smile and pray for the best. And then I think on the flip side, taking things from competition into performance, um that drive that a lot of us have in competition, that constant need to be better. You always have something ahead of you, or at least that's how I think about it. You know, if I'll never be completely satisfied with where I am. I'll get something. It might be the best result I've ever got. I'm going to want more the next time, and I'm going to go into the studio and work for that. And I think that drive really translates well into performance because it's almost every Irish dancer's dream to be doing these gigs. Like, and once you get that, like you accomplish your dream. But for me, that's not enough. Once I do one gig, I want to work and be the best so that I can get another, and then hopefully that translates into a tour offer. Or if you're on tour, you want to work hard and use all the same drive that I use in competition to make sure I'm putting my best foot and performance forward on stage every night so that that hopefully leads into the next. I
Yeah,
hope that
that's
makes sense.
Yeah, that absolutely does. It sounds like they both kind of feed into each other and overall just like have given you a different, not like a crazy level of confidence, not like you're overconfident. It sounds like you're just finding like yourself in dancing and finding how you can like be accountable for your work. And then that translates to like honestly reflecting how you feel on stage, whether in a performance or at a competition, saying, hey, like I'm really confident in my ability to do this, that I can relax enough to like think about the performance and like the art of it rather than, like you're saying, like smiling and like crossing your fingers that it goes okay, that brings a new level of confidence to say, hey, I can trust that like my ability to do this dance will show up because that's within me, but now I'm going to put my energy into like the performance and making this like meaningful both for myself and the audience. And I don't know, that just sounds really cool because that's
Yeah.
something I don't think like in general we talk about in the Irish dance world, but it is a performance whether you're actually in a show or it's at a competition, it's meaningful to make a connection with the audience, whether that's, paying customers or adjudicators. You want to make an impact to some degree, and that does, I think, at least come from having that really strong foundation of confidence where you then can begin to perform. Do you
Yeah.
think that kind of like has
Yeah,
shown up for you?
absolutely. I think it's something I'm definitely still working on. My teachers are going to love that you said that because they're always on to me. I think this is a lesson that everyone can learn, myself very much included. I need to work on this. But a lot of times, whether it's going on stage for a show or going on stage for a competition, you've put all the work in. Like everything up until this moment has led you here. And at this point, all you can do is really enjoy your time on that stage. And that is something that I absolutely am working on. I um I tend to get very in my head and like working hard and like pushing and pushing, 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 pushing. So my teachers are really like getting on me to enjoy my time on stage. And I think that's something that everyone can do because, like you said, like it doesn't matter whether you're dancing for the judges, you're dancing for the audience, you're there. You may as well enjoy it.
Absolutely. And like, you're on the stage, chances are you're not going to get way, way, way better um the second you step on stage or way worse or anything.
Mhm.
It's I always try to remind myself like side stage, like, this is within me. My ability to get this job done in whatever it is there. Like I can do a full hornpipe, I've
Yeah,
survived it. I can get through it. I know that. So I'm not gonna waste my energy and my confidence and all of my space in my brain worrying about my ability to execute. I'm gonna put some energy into like worrying about how I perform this because one, that's something else to think about and be a little less stressed. And two, it just makes a better experience for everyone, like myself included. It feels much better to walk off stage being like, oh, I feel like I just performed that so well and like just gave it everything I could in terms of yes, the dancing, but also how I did it myself, if that makes sense. Because then as an audience member, you get more out of it. And as a dancer, who I think it's most important to serve yourself first in that kind of aspect, you have a much richer experience,
absolutely. I think it's a lot easier said than done because, I just said all that, but I'm still myself working on being
Of
able to just
course,
go
of
up
course.
there and really just enjoy being on that stage in that moment. But
Hmm. And I think, I mean, I should say the same for me too. It's not like I've got this down at all. I totally, totally, totally do not. And there are days when I do feel like I'm just kind of like smiling and, hoping it goes okay and I like survive because
yeah.
not every day is perfect, but there are those rare moments when, or hopefully they're getting less rare, those moments where you're on stage and everything is clicking and you have the like capacity to think about the performance and making it art and more meaningful beyond just like executing a reel or a hornpipe, it that's pretty cool, but
Yeah.
it's something for everyone to work on, I think, and that's what keeps it
Absolutely.
fun. It can't
Yes.
always be perfect, so that's why you keep practicing and like going to the studio and all of that. But I don't know, that's just interesting to think about how you've had such a journey in dance and that's kind of like all coming together now. Do you think, well, I'm sure it has, but I would like to hear from you. Do you think your passion when you first began dancing has like evolved into something totally new as a dancer now, or has it just stayed the same and changed a little bit, if that makes sense?
It's a really interesting question. And not one I would really think of. I've always loved Irish dance. Like even from when I like my first class at 6, like I said, I started and I haven't looked back. It's
Hmm.
always been part of my life. It always will be part of my life. Um, I'm not sure that it's changed much because I've always seriously loved Irish dance. Even when I like wasn't doing well in competition, I still loved it. I still showed up to class. I never really thought like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm gonna quit. I think it's presented itself in different ways. I think back when I, could have been practicing a little bit smarter when I was younger, I still loved Irish dance because I was trying all these new cool things, and that was how I was expressing my love. Now I express my love by going to the studio and like working, 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 and I express my love by going up on stage and smiling big and really enjoying it or trying to enjoy it while I'm there. But I don't think it's changed all that much. I think deep down, my entire life, I've loved Irish dance, and it just presents itself in different ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think maybe if we all kind of sat back and thought about that, we'd probably come up with a similar answer, which I think is cool. Many of us still carry like the same reason why we started dancing, simply, because we love it. And just like you said, the ways we show that and reflect that and like keep that active in our lives may be different, especially as you get older and figure out what works and what doesn't work for you. But at the end of the day, you just keep showing up and doing it because you love it, right? And
There's
whether
no escape.
it's just like going to class or working super hard, like you have found, it's kind of like this long lasting things that just slowly evolves with you as you kind of grow up in it. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I'd say one thing that definitely has changed in the way I interact with Irish dance, and this is very important. This is why I'm not waiting for a question about it. I want to bring it up, but is my friendships in dance. They are a lot of what drive me at this moment. When I was younger, I was friends with the ones in my school, but I wasn't very outgoing. Whereas you, like you said, you know me. To those that don't know me, I am probably the biggest extrovert. I love to talk. Um, and as I've grown up, I've really started to really enjoy the friends I make in Irish dance, and that's a lot of what keeps me going. I think that if my passion for Irish dance has changed, it's because of my friends, because I have all these amazing people that I get to see only ever a couple times in a year. And that's what drives me to keep going as well, is that I get to spend this time with my friends and, interact with my friends. And I think well, my personal love of Irish dance has always been the same. I think that may have augmented it now that I think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think honestly, yeah, that's true for me too. And I'm sure a lot of kind of older dancers as we've grown up and found like our people in the world of Irish
Mhm.
dance, that connection provides for a lot of inspiration and motivation and like commitment to the sport, especially as other things with school and work come up and life just gets busier and busier. We still find the time to show up and be there for one another, if not like for ourselves. And I think we've at times, or maybe it's just me, but at times we fail to realize that like that connection is so incredibly powerful and meaningful and necessary. I think when we're younger, we do kind of, it's great to have friends in your school and everything, but you don't realize that there are other people exactly like you know, halfway across the world, and getting to know them and meeting all kinds of new people like that provides for so much in terms of just loving dancing and finding meaning in it, because connection is like quite a powerful tool when you sit back and look at it. So that's kind of our hope, like, you know, with New View and having these kinds of conversations that, you know, you and I are friends, but maybe someone listening to this is like, ooh, I totally relate. Like, here are two more people that I can like have some kind of connection with and draw inspiration from, because it's kind of a small world of Irish dancers, but there's enough of
Yeah.
us to go around, you know?
Yeah. I'd say some of my best friends, both in my personal life and in dance, are dancers. I've found pictures of myself at like 8, 9 years old, standing next to people that I'm now so close with. And it's crazy to think of, had I turned around and started talking to them, we could have had 10 extra years of friendship. Um, and I like what you said about, as life goes on, everyone has so many different things. Life is hard. It's really important to stay connected with these people because whether in Irish dance or not, they get it. I have so many friends that, you don't get to see them that often. We have a conversation every once in a while. We're getting to have this experience here, but it's so important to know that there are people there for you.
Exactly, yeah. Well, Aiden, this has been such an awesome conversation, and we'll be sure to have you back, of course, at some
Looking
point.
forward to
But
it.
thank you so much for like sharing your story and just your passion about dancing and for your great practice advice. I'm sure everyone will appreciate that. But thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much again for having me. I really enjoyed this. All the best.
Thanks for joining us in this episode of the New View podcast. We hope you enjoyed.
If you have any ideas about future guests we should interview or want to connect, you can find us on Instagram at newview.collective or email us at newviewcollective.mm@gmail.com.